According to MDEA paperwork, Jeffrey Bishop allegedly sold drugs from his Calais police cruiser in the Narraguagas High School parking lot and for non-monetary payment.
This investigation revealed that he had been exchanging hydrocodone pills with the state's witness for sexual favor.
A copy of a Maine Drug Enforcement probable cause narrative revealed that last Monday, the state's witness called Narraguagas High School, talked to her daughter, who then went out of the school's parking lot and allegedly returned with drugs for her mother, given to her by Bishop.
Quick thinking by two coaches resulted in the juvenile turning the drugs over.
Rissler says the drugs were sent to the state lab for testing.
And they were positive for 27 pills of hydrocodone, as well as 3 packets of fentanyl.
After arresting him, drug agents searched his Cherryfield home.
An additional 110 matching hydrocodone pills were recovered from this defendant's police duty bag.
Rissler asked the judge to set $50,000 bail for Bishop. Bishop's defense attorney, however, said there was only one reason for such a high bail.
I don't see him as a flight risk. In fact, I see him as probably going to have to go home and rethink his life.
Rissler said Bishop gave up his badge the day before the drug handoff at Narraguagas High School.
Mr. Bishop was an officer with the Calais Police Department until last Saturday, January 30th.
The judge said Bishop's law enforcement history had to be taken under consideration when setting bail.
He doesn't have a record. He's presumed not to have done anything until the state establishes otherwise.
The Attorney General's office is expected to present Bishop's case to an upcoming session of the Washington County Grand Jury. Currently, Bishop faces 5 charges of selling and furnishing drugs, including involving a minor and selling on school property. I'm TJ Tremble, ABC 7 and Fox 22.
Good evening, I'm Beth Jones.
And I'm J.R. Mitchell. Thank you for joining us. Well, Calais residents in shock tonight after hearing a former police officer was arrested on drug charges.
Kayla Fish spoke with local residents there and joins us live from Calais with more. Kayla.
Good evening, Beth and JR. Everyone I spoke with here in Calais says it's a close-knit community. That's why when the news broke Monday that a former Calais police officer had been arrested on drug charges, many people told me they were surprised.
What do you look to for help?
53-year-old Jeffrey Bishop of Cherryfield, a former Calais police officer, was arrested Friday. Documents from the Maine Drug Enforcement Agency show Bishop is accused of trafficking and furnishing drugs, at times while on duty from his police cruiser, another time to a minor on the grounds of Narraguagas High School.
We basically know everyone, around Calais, where they were, everybody in the school system, It's like a small community. It gets close to home right now when something like that happens.
It's a case that's troubling Calais residents.
Well, I was very surprised. I think he was well liked in the community. Just a real shocker.
It was very, very shocking. This is Calais, it's his hometown people, your neighbor.
One local parent also concerned.
I have 2 kids in the elementary school locally here, and he used to sit there every morning before school, and it just makes you wonder, and it's really hard to trust the police and the government in this day and age at all. This just adds to the mixture of poison in our community right now.
We spoke with the Calais police chief Tuesday, who referred us to a statement sent Monday, saying they're, quote, surprised and concerned by the allegations. The chief's statement said if the accusations are true, it's a, quote, black eye, not only to the department, but all of law enforcement.
It is disruptive because we have a good police department, but when you have bad ones everywhere. So you can have individual bad cases, and this happens to be one of them.
And I think it's going to probably unwind a whole lot more.
Now, Bishop was taken to the Aroostook County Jail Monday. A judge set his bail at $30,000 cash. Now, this is an ongoing investigation, and we'll continue to follow this story as it develops. For more, I'll send things back to David Horowitz in our Bangor studio. David?
Thank you, Kayla. Amidst the chaotic situation, police say it's important to note that the minor involved in this incident was not an active willing participant, but rather was unwillingly pulled into the situation by participating adults. She has not been charged with any crimes, and we reached out to some other family members of the 17-year-old that was given the drugs at the school during the incident that started the investigation and ultimately led to the arrest of Jeffrey Bishop. They tell us that the image showed painted stories of her that are not accurate of her character. They describe her as a bright, talented member of the National Honor Society who has worked hard to earn good grades and someone who is active in sports. Her relatives say she was asked to retrieve a package that contained drugs by someone she loves, and she did not seek them out. They say the situation put her in an impossible position that has now become extremely difficult for her and the other members of their family. Again, according to authorities, the 17-year-old has not been charged with any crime. This case is still being investigated, and more details will be made available to us when possible. Back over to you, Beth, at the desk.
All right, thank you so much, David. Good evening, everyone. I'm Beth Jones.
And I'm J.R. Mitchell. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, we are not in the studio. We are at our very first on-the-road show for the summer of 2021 in beautiful Bar Harbor at Jack Russell's Steakhouse and Brewery. We'll have much more from Bar Harbor later on in the show. But first, our top story tonight, a former Calais police officer is in jail again, this time facing more than 30 charges.
Our Susan Farley is in the studio with the details.
Attorney General spokesperson Mark Mallon says 53-year-old Jeffrey Bishop of Cherryfield was taken into custody this morning. According to Mallon, a Washington County grand jury indicted Bishop on 35 counts, including furnishing drugs to a minor, drug trafficking, stealing drugs from the Calais Police Department, and charges related to 16 stolen guns recovered from his home. Bishop was taken to the Hancock County Jail after his arrest. His bail is set at $100,000 cash. Back to you in Bar Harbor.
Much more on that later on tonight. Thank you very much, Susan. In other news, Augusta police now say
53-year-old Jeffrey Bishop of Cherryfield was indicted on 35 counts. According to Maine Attorney General spokesperson Mark Mallon, the Washington County Court issued a warrant for Bishop's arrest and he turned himself in Friday. The former Calais police officer was initially arrested in February of 2021. Bishop appeared before the court for additional charges Monday afternoon, including furnishing drugs to a minor, drug trafficking, stealing drugs from the Calais Police Department, and charges related to 15 stolen guns recovered from his home and another that was turned over to investigators.
The grand jury specifically returned counts for both theft and receiving stolen property as to 9 of the firearms, where the evidence would support that the defendant stole the firearms while acting in his capacity as a police officer.
Rissler says Bishop stole a gun from a car while responding to an accident in 2017. According to Rissler, 18 firearms were also stolen from a home where Bishop had responded to a burglary in Millbridge. Although Bishop was the responding officer, Rissler says he never filed any paperwork with the Millbridge Police Department, and 7 guns from there were found in his home. Rissler says another gun from that burglary was taken from former police officer Jamie Dembo, who was also indicted.
Mr. Denbo admitted to having purchased this firearm from Mr. Bishop.
Another 2 counts relate to firearms stolen from the Goldsboro Police Department when it was burglarized in 2016, according to Rissler.
It should be noted that Mr. Bishop was a former employee of that department.
I wasn't present here when that employee worked here, but I would say in general, I believe nationwide there are good police officers.
Rissler says multiple firearms were recovered that were stolen from other burglaries, and Bishop had 2 with obliterated serial numbers. He says Bishop also had medication that was turned over to the Calais Police Department by a nursing home, and some appear to be signed for by Bishop.
These charges would appear to show a pattern of conduct with the defendant using his position with law enforcement for personal gain.
The defense attorney says Bishop did not flee upon his second indictment.
Mr. Bishop was a model officer for multiple municipalities prior to these charges being alleged. He had actually officially retired or was in the process of retiring.
Bishop will appear before the Washington County Court again in August. I'm Brooke Riley reporting for ABC 7 and Fox 22.